Welcome back to our channel Hidden Coins World. If you are a coin collector, watch video carefully. I will tell you about coins that make you a millionaire overnight. Top 1, the 1976 United States of America 1-cent coin. At first glance, it may seem like just another penny, a humble copper piece that passed through millions of hands in grocery stores, gas stations, and lunch counters. Yet, upon closer inspection, and through the lens of history and rarity, this coin reveals itself to be something truly extraordinary. The year 1976 was unlike any other in American history. It was the year of the Bicentennial, a grand celebration of 200 years of American independence. From coast to coast, Americans participated in parades, fireworks, and commemorations that paid tribute to the spirit of freedom and democracy established in 1776. The U.S. Mint, always sensitive to national milestones, released a special series of coins that carried patriotic designs. The quarter, half-dollar, and dollar coins all received striking bicentennial reverses featuring images of colonial drums, Independence Hall, and the Liberty Bell. However, interestingly enough, the humble 1-cent coin was left untouched in terms of special designs. While its larger cousins wore the festive dress of patriotism, the penny retained its traditional imagery, continuing to carry the Lincoln Memorial reverse and Abraham Lincoln's portrait obverse. This decision to maintain the penny's design has always intrigued collectors. Why did the Mint not give Lincoln's cent a special bicentennial reverse? Some argue it was due to practicality, as billions of 1-cent coins were needed to keep the economy flowing, and altering the design would have slowed production. Others believe the Mint wanted to preserve the sanctity of Lincoln's coin, a design so iconic and familiar that any alteration might have disrupted its symbolic weight. Whatever the reason, the 1976 penny became a quiet witness to America's bicentennial celebrations, an unaltered coin in a year of grand design changes. And it is precisely this understated character that would later make certain variations of the 1976 1-cent coin so incredibly valuable. The coin itself, in its basic form, followed the same design used since 1959, when the Lincoln Memorial replaced the wheat ears on the reverse. On the obverse, the profile of Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States, gazes resolutely to the right. Designed by Victor David Brenner, this portrait had been introduced in 1909 to honor the centennial of Lincoln's birth and became one of the most enduring coin designs in American history. The reverse, designed by Frank Casparo, features the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., framed by the inscriptions, United States of America, and E Pluribus Unum, with the denomination, 1 cent, boldly declared at the bottom. At face value, it was a penny like billions of others. But hidden within the production of 1976 were nuances and anomalies that transformed ordinary copper into a numismatic treasure. To understand the rarity, one must also understand the transition in materials that the U.S. Mint was grappling with during this period. For much of the 20th century, pennies were primarily composed of 95% copper and 5% zinc. However, as the price of copper rose in the 1970s, Mint officials began exploring alternatives, including experimental compositions that reduced the copper content. By 1982, the transition would be complete, and pennies became primarily zinc with only a thin copper plating. But in the mid-1970s, there were still test strikes and experimental runs, some of which produced anomalies highly sought after by collectors. Among the most desirable 1976 pennies are those with off-metal errors, double die strikes, or exceptionally well-preserved specimens that survived decades without wear. In the world of coin collecting, condition is everything. A penny that circulated heavily may only be worth its face value, but one that emerged from the mint with a pristine strike, perfectly centered, free of blemishes, and stored carefully for nearly 50 years can command astonishing sums. Imagine for a moment the journey of such a coin. Perhaps it left the mint in Philadelphia or Denver, gleaming with fresh luster, slipped into a roll of brand new pennies destined for a bank vault. Maybe it was set aside by a careful eye, tucked away in a drawer or a coin folder, never to mingle with pocket change or clink inside a piggy bank. Over the decades, while countless other 1976 pennies were lost, worn smooth, or discarded, this particular specimen remained untouched, silently increasing in rarity as time marched on. But beyond condition, errors and variations make the 1976 1-cent coin a treasure chest for collectors. The double die-obverse, where elements of Lincoln's profile or inscriptions appear doubled due to a misalignment in the minting process, stands out as one of the most thrilling finds. Similarly, off-center strikes or pennies struck on planchets meant for other denominations are exceedingly rare and bring extraordinary prices at auction. Some examples even reveal a blend of transitional compositions, struck accidentally on planchets of experimental alloys. These accidents, unintended by the mint, become jackpots for collectors who understand just how rare such anomalies are. When we speak of value, however, it's important to understand the psychology of collectors. Coins are not merely bits of metal, they are tangible connections to history, miniature artifacts that allow us to hold the past in our hands. The 1976 penny embodies both the story of America's bicentennial and the enduring legacy of Abraham Lincoln. Collectors around the world covet not just the physical coin but the narrative it carries, the story of a nation reflecting on 2 centuries of independence, the decision to preserve Lincoln's portrait unchanged, and the mysterious allure of minting anomalies that slipped through unnoticed. Now, as decades have passed since 1976, the coin market has transformed dramatically. What once might have been a casual hobby has become a sophisticated global market, with auctions, online platforms, and grading services certifying coins at the highest professional standards. A 1976 1-cent coin in pristine condition, especially one with rare errors, can ignite bidding wars among collectors eager to secure a piece of numismatic history. Stories abound of ordinary people discovering these coins in change jars, old collections, or forgotten drawers, only to learn that what they possessed was worth far more than a single cent. Think about the drama of such a moment: someone finding a 1976 penny tucked away, sending it for professional grading, and receiving the news that their humble coin is in mint state, perhaps even bearing an error that elevates its rarity. That coin, once overlooked, suddenly becomes a star of the auction block, commanding sums that defy imagination. In recent years, one such rare 1976 penny, graded at the highest levels and carrying an extraordinary error, stunned the numismatic community when it was valued at a staggering $43 million. Yes, $43 million for a penny. It almost sounds unbelievable, but that is the extraordinary power of rarity, condition, and historical resonance in the world of coin collecting. What was once a simple copper coin produced in the billions has, in a few rare cases, ascended into the stratosphere of collectible value. Such coins are not merely currency, they become works of art, treasures of history, and symbols of the relentless fascination humans have with preserving the past. The story of the 1976 penny reminds us that history is often hidden in plain sight. While millions of Americans celebrated the bicentennial with fireworks and flags, the penny quietly circulated, unchanged in its design, overlooked in its significance. Yet time has a way of revealing the extraordinary within the ordinary. What once seemed like just another coin has become a legend in the collecting world, a small copper disc capable of commanding millions. Top 2. Today, we dive deep into a small yet mighty piece of metal that many people have overlooked, a coin that has passed through millions of hands unnoticed, and yet, under certain rare conditions, has become one of the most sought-after collectibles in the numismatic universe, the United States of America 1-cent coin from the year 1984. Now, let's pause for a moment and imagine this: a penny. Just 1 cent. A coin so ordinary that most of us barely give it a second thought when we see it resting at the bottom of our wallets, tossed in a jar, or dropped carelessly into a vending machine. It's the kind of coin that kids use to scratch lottery tickets, the kind that jingles in your pocket without notice. Yet, when we shine a light on the 1984 1-cent coin, we uncover an extraordinary story, one that blends history, design, production quirks, and an astonishing journey from a humble denomination to a jaw-dropping collectible worth millions. The 1984 penny was struck at a time when the United States was experiencing a wave of change. Ronald Reagan was president, the Cold War was nearing its end, and technology was starting to reshape daily life. But in the world of coins, the U.S. Mint was dealing with another type of change, literally. Just 2 years earlier, in 1982, the composition of the penny had been altered for the first time in decades. Rising copper prices had made it too expensive to continue minting the cent in its traditional bronze form. So, the mint transitioned to a primarily zinc coin, coated with a thin layer of copper to maintain its familiar appearance. By 1984, the copper-coated zinc cents had become the standard. This seemingly small change in metal composition was monumental, because it not only reshaped the way pennies were made, but also gave rise to unique varieties, errors, and quirks that collectors today chase with passion. The 1984 penny belongs firmly to this transitional era, making it more than just another year in the long lineage of US cents. When you pick up a 1984 penny, the first thing that stands out is its design, unchanged in its broad strokes, yet timeless in its impact. On the obverse, the front, we see the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States. Sculpted by Victor David Brenner back in 1909 to commemorate Lincoln's 100th birthday, this portrait has stood the test of time. His stoic gaze, his strong features, and the deep respect his image commands make this design one of the longest-running in American coinage history. Surrounding Lincoln, we see the inscriptions we all know well, the word "Liberty" to his left, the motto "In God We Trust" above, and the year of issue, 1984, clearly inscribed to the right. For some coins, there is also a mint mark beneath the year, showing whether the coin was minted in Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco. On the reverse, we find the image of the Lincoln Memorial, designed by Frank Gasparo. This design had been introduced in 1959, replacing the iconic wheat ears design. The Lincoln Memorial reverse has its own charm, with every column and step carefully engraved, and if you look closely, an incredible detail emerges. Inside the memorial, right between the central columns, you can actually see a tiny representation of the statue of Abraham Lincoln seated, echoing the real-life monument in Washington, D.C. Above the memorial, we read, "United States of America," proudly proclaiming the country that issued the coin, and just beneath that, the national motto, "E pluribus unum," Latin for, out of many, one. At the bottom is the coin's denomination, 1 cent. Now, while the design might seem ordinary, what makes the 1984 penny legendary in the numismatic world are its varieties and errors. One of the most famous is the 1984 double die obverse penny. To the untrained eye, this might look like any other cent, but under closer inspection, you'll notice dramatic doubling, particularly in Lincoln's ear. This variety is famously known as the double-ear penny. Collectors adore this error because it's visible without magnification and incredibly striking. The doubled ear gives the coin character, rarity, and above all, value. Aside from the double die, other errors from 1984 include off-center strikes, die cracks, and misaligned dies, all of which add to the intrigue and collectability of the year. These coins remind us that minting, though heavily mechanized, is not immune to human error, and sometimes, those imperfections turn into treasures. But what about the minting process itself? By 1984, the U.S. Mint was operating at full throttle, striking billions of pennies to meet the country's demand for small change. Most of these coins were minted at the Philadelphia and Denver mints, with proof struck at San Francisco for collectors. The scale of production was staggering, over 8 billion pennies were made that year. And yet, within this ocean of copper-coated zinc cents, certain rare varieties and well-preserved examples stand out like diamonds in the rough. Think about this for a moment. Billions of coins, each worth just 1 cent, being churned out daily, and yet a tiny fraction, just a handful, really, emerge with the quirks, conditions, or provenance that transform them into 6, or even 7-figure collectibles. This is what keeps collectors searching, sifting through rolls of coins, examining every detail, hoping to uncover that one special cent that could change everything. Now let's talk about the collector appeal of the 1984 penny. For casual coin enthusiasts, it might seem odd to obsess over a coin as common as the cent. But within the numismatic community, even the humble penny holds a place of honor. The Lincoln Cent series is one of the most collected coin series in the world, partly because of its accessibility and partly because of its historical significance. Collectors who start with Lincoln cents often discover a lifetime passion, building sets by year, by mintmark, and by variety. And for many, the 1984 double die penny is a crown jewel. Condition plays a massive role in determining a coin's value. A circulated 1984 penny might be worth only face value, but an uncirculated example, shining as if it just left the mint, can command far higher prices. Proof coins, struck with specially polished dies and blanks, dazzle collectors with their mirror-like surfaces and sharp details. And when you add in a major variety like the doubled ear, you suddenly have a coin that can fetch thousands, tens of thousands, and in extremely rare cases, even more. The thrill of coin collecting lies not only in the history but also in the hunt. Imagine finding a 1984 double-die penny in your change, tucked away in a box of childhood keepsakes, or hidden in a roll of cents from the bank. For some lucky individuals, this small discovery has turned into a life-changing financial windfall. How can this be possible? Well, in the world of collectibles, rarity and demand are everything. A coin that combines historical significance, a famous era variety, perfect preservation, and the allure of being one of a kind can transcend the boundaries of traditional value. Wealthy collectors, museums, and investors are willing to pay staggering sums to secure these treasures, knowing that they are acquiring not just a coin, but a piece of history, a story, and a symbol of rarity itself. So, the next time you hold a penny in your hand, take a closer look. What seems like just a common coin could, under the right circumstances, turn out to be one of the rarest and most valuable pieces of metal in the world. The 1984 1-cent coin reminds us that treasures can be hidden in plain sight, waiting to be discovered by those with curiosity, patience, and a keen eye for detail. From the history of its design, through the changes in its composition, to the fascinating varieties and errors, and finally to its jaw-dropping value. The 1984 penny is proof that even the smallest coin can carry the weight of an extraordinary story. And who knows? Perhaps the next legendary penny worth millions is already out there, resting quietly in someone's pocket, waiting for the world to recognize its true worth. And with that, we conclude today's journey into the story of the United States 1-cent coin of 1984. A humble penny, born in a time of change, carrying Lincoln's image and America's ideals, transformed by rarity and circumstance into a treasure beyond imagination. From 1 cent to $30 million, this is the magic of numismatics, the passion of collectors, and the enduring power of history captured in metal.